excited to be here. Wow. Tell me how you really feel. Like really. You got it. Yeah. It's all right. It's afternoon long. I get it. Okay, great. So to start off, say what?
Oh, everyone's just 3 rosés in now.
Yeah. Like,
slow reaction.
jet lag is here. This is about the time where you're like, is it time to sleep? Maybe it is. I'm Souki. Lovely to meet you all. Glad you're here with us. However, sober and or, awake you are. It's so nice to see so many new faces, old friends. And right now we're going to be talking about creative uses of AI, ethical challenges, all of the things that artists have to deal with on a daily basis. These are the pioneers of the field. You're seeing the first frontier. So today we've got lots of amazing folks, lots of amazing conversations, and we're going to do a little round of introductions, then we're going to ask some questions. So I'm Souki Mehdaoui. I am a director and co-founder of a creative tech consulting company called Bell & Whistle. I work with different business leaders, enterprise leaders to help people use AI in interesting new use cases, increase their tech literacy, and bring their humanity to the process as they sort of elevate their integration of AI and new technology in the new world and the new workflows. And I said this earlier, but I'm like a friendly neighborhood tech Sherpa. I'm also a creative director. Some of my work is on the wall back there, and we're talking to the featured artist whose work is back there. If you haven't seen it, please go watch. You can put on headphones, see amazing use cases of AI. And today we're going to be chatting with Paul Trillo. Give him a round of applause.
All of you too. Thanks all for coming. So appreciate
You're welcome, Paul, for meeting you. We've got Alexia, Adana. Donna and Stevenson. Yeah. We've got Nathan Shipley. We feel the energy. And Josephine Miller. I love it when you're enthusiastic. All right, so I'm really excited to dive into the topics, but before we do, I'm going to have everyone sort of introduce themselves. If you're not familiar with them, give a little bit of a brief introduction to themselves and their work and how they got here, so you can feel the power that you're witnessing. All right, so we'll go sort of all the way over to Josephine. You want to start out?
Hey everyone, I'm Josephine Miller. I'm based in London and I'm an art director and co-founder of Oraar Studio.
And I am Nathan Shipley. I am the director of AI at Goodby Silverstein and Partners, and my background is in animation and visual effects, so I think about AI from that perspective a lot.
I'm Alexia. I'm a visual artist and creative director at Edelman, and I develop products and experiences that are on the intersection of creative and tech.
Hello, my name is Don Allen Stevenson III. I go by Don Allen III. I try to be like a Bob Ross of the metaverse and like futuristic tech, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. I'm Paul Trillo. I'm a writer, director, artist. I do music videos, commercials, short films, and just play with technology at late hours in the night.
Which is kind of all of our favorite things. It's like when we should be asleep on Discord. All right, so another round of applause before we get into questions. Yes. Yeah. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your energy. So to start off, how has the introduction of these tools changed your experience of the creative process? And how have these tools changed your point of view? We could do a popcorn style, I think, to make it a little bit more conversational.
Okay. No, go for it. Please.
So the thing about like creativity as a skill, and it's something that can actually be mapped, right? So when you start ideation, you have a bunch of ideas, and these are probably ideas that a lot of other people have. Like, let's say everybody got the same brief. We're all probably thinking some of the similar ideas at the beginning, right? And then you enter the throne of agony, where it's like trying to come up with an idea is like painful. And then if you let the process play out, and you let the silly, stupid, kind of ridiculous ideas enter your mind and really entertain that, and then connect that to the earlier ideas that were very relevant, but not necessarily as unique, then you start to, go into this area where you've got hyper unique ideas that are also hyper relevant. And this is really the kind of like map of creativity. And what AI tools have done is it really helps to like reduce that throne of agony. and open up so much room for the creativity to actually flourish. And so for me, from my point of view, it's just like, it's allowed me to like let my crazy amount of ideas like actually come into the world, let me to experiment with them. And yeah, it's just opened up a lot of possibilities.
It adds plush pillows to the throne of agony.
And it's nice.
Well said.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think what you're getting at, I mean, the most painful process is the blank canvas process. That's the most daunting process or step. Is the first step is just staring at the blank canvas. And I think what has been liberating about AI is it allows you to blast through that blank canvas step and just gets you into creation mode. So you don't have that like this giant 50-foot wall of the canvas that you're just staring at and you're spinning your head on. So being able to get through that process is very liberating. But then it does something to the brain that it actually. What I've found, AI has like changed my mode of thinking. So now I'm interacting and experiencing the real world in a way and seeing opportunities for ideas that I didn't see out there before. So some of the animations I've done back there, as I started to play with turning DALL-E into stop motion, into visual effects, composited into live action film that I'm shooting. As soon as I kind of cracked that process, I started to look at the world differently, and I was like, oh, what if that building, that like one-story Chinese food restaurant, becomes like a skyscraper? And I was like, oh, I can manipulate the entire world around me. And so it was very liberating. And I started to develop, without the AI, I started to go down paths I wouldn't have explored before.
It's cool. I'll add, for me, just as a creative technologist, I'm often more interested in the process than the result. I love the problem-solving aspect of what we work on and figuring things out. When a creative comes to me with a hard question and we have no idea how we're going to do that, but we're going to put on our headphones for a couple weeks and figure it out. It seems like the sorts of things that we're able to say yes to now that we've got AI tools are much more expansive than before. And so that's really exciting for me.
I'll jump in and I'll say since starting to use these AI tools, there's like ideas that I would have like not taken on in the past because I would think like it's going to take too much time for me to go through the iteration cycle, and then like the client reviews are going to be, and so that I would pitch to them a smaller scale idea to like kind of cushion that potential. But now when you have like generative tools that allow you to like iterate way faster and come up with like a million ideas, now I feel safe being like, okay, let's go for like that really crazy big out there idea, because it's not actually impossible. And I think a lot of you were even hearing from other speakers today, just like how the time scales of how long it took in the past to make something is like, diminishing. So now it's like, okay, we're allowed to actually imagine bigger and greater. So yeah, that's kind of been the change.
Yeah, and also for me, I found that it's really helped me to challenge my own conventional creative process. So usually, if I get a client brief, I'll start sketching out the ideas on, paper or so. And for using DALL-E inside of my work, for example, I found that I'm able to, with like the idea itself, generate prompts and then be able to generate other ideas. Sometimes it comes out and I really don't like it, and then I realize, okay, why don't I like this? And if I really like what DALL-E generated more than my own sketches, I start to question, what about this do I like? What symbolic references from this could I take? And kind of build on from there. So I kind of see it like, ping pong, you're going back and forth with AI and just refining and strengthening the storytelling and narrative in that way. Yeah.
So I make this reference to AI, like working with AI is like kind of like talking to a super creative hungover intern. Like they're not all there, but they're so smart and very like, they have great ideas. But you're like, oh, that one's like, I think you stayed out a little too late. And they're like, no bright lights, please. But so in my process, in my creative process, I have these new approaches. A big part of how I've started to use these tools for myself is creating my own sort of special recipes, right? Of like, okay, I'm going to go from ChatGPT into DALL-E and or Midjourney. Then I'm going to go to Runway or this other app, and I'm going to try to figure out, okay, maybe I'm like a nerf out of it. And I start to daisy chain these different ideas together and start to play with the order of that chaining and that stacking. And I'm curious, as you've been using these different tools, what kinds of recipes have you been coming up with? Is it just experimentation? How much is like crafting an image of what you want and working backwards, and how much is just throwing paint at the wall? Can you tell me a little bit more about your actual process, how you use them very practically?
Looking at me?
Yeah,
Okay.
looking at you, man.
All right.
Looking at you, kid.
I mean, I usually start out with like a hypothesis of like, I usually seek out something challenging, something I haven't done, and something I don't know how to do, and I try to break it down into steps that I do know how to do. It's also a knowledge of knowing the tools and having experience with the tools, and knowing how to, I guess, subvert what they were designed to do and see what other ways you can hack the tools in a way to unlock new creative ideas. So I'm, whatever, like just the very bare bones thing. Runway started with green screen or like auto rotoscope. So then I was like, oh wow, now I don't have to like sit there and rotoscope. I would never hire people to rotoscope my Instagram experiments. It's just work that.
Why not, Paul? You've got the interns.
I know. But then just being able to like not have that barrier of like, oh, okay, now that I don't have to like rotoscope things anymore, now what can I do? I can like duplicate people. Okay, what does that mean when we're multiplying our identity? And I try to find meaning within that. And so it starts with like being able to like, how can I subvert the tool? How can I add another tool into the mix to then create a new visual that doesn't exist? And and then how do I challenge myself to figure something out that I don't know how to do? So it's always it's a bit of a scientific process, I guess, in trying to challenge yourself.
Piggyback off that one. So like the whole experimentation is like one of my favorite parts. Maybe part of that like secret recipe is like getting into that experimentation like mindset. Like my dad's a scientist. He taught me like start out with a hypothesis, and then we're gonna like come up with like a procedure, and we're gonna run that iteration a bunch of times, and then you're gonna get a result. And then you don't stop right there. In fact, like you then go back and like reanalyze, was my hypothesis on, was it off? For me personally, like one of the secret recipes I try to do with like utilizing these new AI tools is I try to like be the first to solve a problem from the people that developed that AI tool. And so what I mean by that is usually like a lot of folks that are developing these AI models, they don't know what they don't know. Like they make these tools for us and then they're like, we don't even know what it does. And so what I try to do is like be one of the first people that will use that tool, and I try to think what problem would like a developer from their team really want to solve for. And then I make a piece with it. I can work on that piece of content and I put it out there fast. And a real practical example was like I didn't have any contacts with people at Runway and Valve, and so I really wanted access to their tool called Gen 1, which can take any text description and turn that into an animated video. And I was like, I want to get on that. So I didn't know anyone, so I went to Twitter. I said, hey, I don't have access to this tool, but if I did, I would make something like this. I tried to use open source tools that were available. I used GPT-4 to help me come up with a prompt. I used DALL-E to come up with images. And then I did a style transfer on it with a tool called, oh my God, I'm blanking on it. Which one do we use? Kyber, yes. I used Kyber to transfer the image style onto a video, put it out there on Twitter, and then Runway ML's team saw that, and they make and then they're like, oh, that's what you would make with it. Hey, do you want access to our tool? I was like, yes, please.
Thanks, Dan.
Hook me up with some access on Runway tools.
Share on Twitter or Instagram or on socials.
Gen 1 and Gen 2 are now available.
Yeah, but the digital edits, they got access.
That's all I have access to.
So I want access to the good.
All the hidden stuff is now out there. But I'll let you know as soon as I have access.
Dope.
Yeah,
I'll have access.
So start like a group chat or something. Just let us know.
Do you see this community bonding right here? Let's give it a round of applause. Come on, look at that affirmation. Then behind on these. All right, let's working together.
I would add one point to that also, because I think that's the place where artists with these tools is to explore them and come up with, interesting use cases. But you touched on this a little, all the idea of misusing the tools. As many, to the developers out there, as many controls as you can give us, we're really interested in turning the dials the wrong way or past where you intended them to be set, to see what places that we can take these things. And yeah, I've had some examples where that's been really interesting. So I think a great place for artists in this is to really kind of be leading us and showing people what we can do with these tools. So
Yeah, I really love experimenting with all of the tools, whether it's, plugging ChatGPT in with Python and running scripts and using GPT to actually help me learn how to code with Python, which is pretty incredible. Or, creating prompts for Midjourney in GPT with just like a one-line command. Which I no longer have to do anymore because now there's a DALL-E plugin with GPT-4, which is going to open up so many possibilities. But one specific use case is a couple weeks ago, I put out a animated AI video, and it was me as a scene in Everything Everywhere All at Once. If you want to check it out, it's in the showcase gallery. But the process of that was kind of complicated. There's a lot of different tools and things involved, but I'll give you like a high level. So first it involved creating a custom AI model of myself using Stable Diffusion. So that requires uploading 20 to 30 images. There's a Google Colab where you could actually train a custom model of yourself. And it's pretty amazing. Like you write in a prompt and it's you, and it looks like you. And there's so many models of Stable Diffusion that are hyper realistic. So then I use that custom model and I feed it, basically I do video to video stylization. So I take, don't hunt me down for this, I take a screen recorded, of the scene and Everything Everywhere, and I feed it into Stable Diffusion, and I do a video to video stylization with very specific prompts. And I'm doing this on a PC with a 3070 NVIDIA, GPU card, and it's taking hours. My office is hot, and then, and it's crazy. It's like every frame, it's like me as Evelyn. But then I go into Premiere, and I actually have to kind of match cut every one of the renders frames to the original kind of video, just to make sure that it's, I'm as a creative, I'm kind of like a perfectionist, like it has to be exact. And so yeah, that's kind of like the overall process. And it's still one of the main things here is, as an artist, I'm still having to use traditional creative tools that, like Adobe Premiere or After Effects. And AI is just like another tool in the toolbox that's really augmenting the process, really helping me get to that final product sooner. So
I call it the human sandwich, right? Where the AI is just in the middle. It's not the first step. It's not the last step. It's just the middle step. And it's your idea. It's your own photography, your own video, whatever it is that starts as the source material. And then you let AI do its thing. You have the ping pong game, and then you polish it and you use your kind of skills, your talents, your craft that you've developed over the years to kind of refine it at the end so that it really has your fingerprint. Because the whole thing is about controlling the chaotic beast that is AI. It's very random, and so as much as you can just kind of keep it bookended with human touch, it's just going to be closer to what you want.
For sure. So for me, I predominantly use it for conceptualization. Similar to actually what Chad showed us earlier, I love just experimenting with physical drawings, and just the ideation process is shrinks so much because of what we can do with AI now. I don't have a conventional workflow that I use with AI. It really depends on what the project is, what my mood is, and it's almost like a science experiment of just playing around and trying different things, because some of the tools, AI still has a lot of its own artifacts inside of it, so some of them may have different strengths. So for example, I'll go into this in more detail a little bit later, but I love using DALL-E for conceptualizing garment designs, and then you can go in onto Runway and use EV Synth to actually mask on different garments. And it's just so interesting how as of course, like the AA technology is just advancing so much so quickly. So I wouldn't say stick to one way, just constantly experiment. Maybe it works like 1 week, but maybe there's a new improved workflow the next week. So.
One of the things that I've been talking to people about is having a tool agnostic mindset, which is like, how do you start to think like a scientist, like a landscape designer, like a sort of a problem solving, projecting a future goal, sort of reverse engineering, knowing that whatever steps you design are going to be broken by the reality, the limitations of the project, of the tools that are available, but still trying to sort of piecemeal them together and then start to iterate. Start to experiment, knowing that it's not just the first step, it's probably the 18th to the 218th step that will get you something that's closer to what you're looking for. And so something that's very inspiring to me, but also hearing about other artists' processes, is that there's this real approach to change and approach to failure that is almost like you're not walking, you're running towards it. You're like, is that the cliff of not safety? Great, I'm gonna sprint over the edge. Just Pocahontas right over the waterfall. And so it's very exciting, and also this kind of this approach to creativity, this approach to sort of wild abandonment of the rules that have existed and still bringing them with you can also have some consequences, right? You can break things that are challenging. And so as individual artists, there's a freedom to that, but also how do you apply that to companies? How do you apply that to larger scale larger scale projects in which maybe the consequences of representation, the consequences are a little more heavy, there's more responsibility. Can we talk about some of the ethical issues and ethical concerns that a lot of companies have questions about, also individual artists? How do you approach the ethics of this personally and also for and with larger organizations that might have these questions?
I can start on this one. And so this is a lot of what I've been thinking about at GSMP. We've started an AI department, which is really sort of like a cross-department collaboration of people thinking about this from different disciplines, because obviously there's going to be uses for AI across the creative field, but across agencies. And so our first question was, how are we even going to talk about this? And how do people feel about this in the room? So we started by taking a survey of our agency just to see, what do people even think? How many people are like, AI, no way? And there's some people that are really excited. Most are in the middle. But our next step with respect to the question was to develop an ethics statement and to ground everything in kind of like a human first perspective and way of thinking about it. So we've actually talked with an AI ethicist, and we try to ground the way that we think about AI in the existing values that we already have as people. And like, to be fair, I don't think I've ever met anybody that's trying to, use AI for bad purposes or something like that. So, but I think it's...
You never know. They could be here.
But what we want to have, as this conversation gets more complex, we need to have something that we can look back at and say like, oh, okay, remember the ethics statement? We have a question right now. Let's think about how we should talk about this. So that's sort of where we started, at least.
It's a great standard to start with. Hey, here's our flag. We're planting it here. It's awesome.
I mean, fortunately, OpenAI and some of the other companies are building those ethics in from the ground up, so that it prevents harmful things from being done. But yeah, of course, there is political misinformation that's already seeping through, and the reality is, like, at least for now in 2023, AI is not bad. Humans are probably the bad part, right? That's like my philosophy is like, sorry, but it's true. It's like humans are evil. The AI is not evil. So you're gonna have bad actors.
It's just the hungover intern.
Yeah, exactly. It's right now, at least, it's harmless. But but it's always humans that are going to be the threat with AI. I think so that's what we have to watch out for is those bad actors. But as much as the companies can kind of instill those ethics from the ground up, it does help tamper that.
Also, from a different perspective as well, I think it's really important, as we are artists who have access to these incredible tools, it's really important on social media to be transparent in how we use it, because there's a lot of people who are completely clueless with how it all works, and I think being able to actually educate them on our use cases, and maybe that will also trigger someone else's ideas. Don, your incredible example of how to educate so many people in so many specific ways. You would love to go into that as well.
Yeah, sure thing. So like, I think, I guess the way I try to personally deal with the ethics side is I get very transparent with what my values are. On my website, I literally have a whole page on what all my values are. I list them all down.
It's so beautiful. Y'all should read it. It's very inspiring.
And I list out what are all my life goals. And I said like, and I also just define how I measure success. And so if you want to manipulate me, you just gotta do that. Just go right in there. And then now, given that principle, when it comes to the teaching aspect, like I try to like show people a little slice of something really cool and then make it immediately actionable. For example, like I made a way that you can use your iPhone if you have a Siri. Whenever I call Siri now, it triggers GPT instead, but it does it through Siri's voice. And so when I'm like driving a car,
Scarlett Johansson.
it's pretty close to Scarlett Johansson.
ScarJo.
Yeah, because Siri had an update on their voice package, so they actually have a lot more expressions and tones. So it is kind of getting closer and closer to that character. But the point I was trying to make though is like that tool. If you want to use it right now, I'm not like gatekeeping it. You can literally send a direct message to my Instagram. You write in the exact words, Siri Pro Mode. I have a bot on my Instagram that will send you the tutorial on how to set it up on your phone. Just
Everybody
DM.
taking
I'm gonna
notes.
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 6-minute tutorial on YouTube, and you just type in Siri Pro Mode, and my bot will take it away.
Amazing.
I'm really fortunate to work on a team at Edelman. We're called Experiences, and we're all about solving real problems and making an actual impact in the world, which is like dream job for me. And as an artist, when I'm experimenting in the tools, because I'm kind of approaching it from that more like creative artistic standpoint, I'm noticing certain things like biases. I'm noticing certain things that, you know, if you were just approaching it from a business standpoint, you might not notice. And then I bring that to the work and I'm saying, hey, I noticed that like when I'm using Midjourney, like all of the immediate results are of like Eurocentric white woman, or you know, when I'm trying to generate an image of like a woman that looks like me. Test. And so I bring that back to the work and I say, hey, what is an extension? What is a plugin? What is an experience that we can create that addresses this bias? What can we do to shift the industry and make a statement with our clients that, you know, as these AI tools continue to progress, we're showing up in a way that's helping drive it in the direction that is more ethical and more representative. And even thinking about, you know, disabilities and things like GPT-4, like it unlocks so much for people who are neurodivergent, who may have autism or ADHD. It can help streamline so many of the processes for them. What custom product can we build with our clients that helps someone with autism or ADHD become, you know, be able to flourish in social situations or be able to show up at work in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming for them. So I'm kind of like approaching it like as I'm experimenting in the tools, I bring my findings to the work and you know, think about what clients can we like solve these problems with.
It's so beautiful to also recognize that as we bring in, and as we ourselves are sort of intersectional artists that come from so many different disciplines and bring our own just human experience to our creativity, it's starting to intersect with other disciplines in a way that's really incredible. We're starting to care about not just aesthetics and storytelling, but also real world problems. What are the things that, you know, I am a filmmaker, and I was a cinematographer for 10 years. I'm now working on consulting companies for how do you use AI in really like real world use cases? How do you start to apply it to your workflows? That's a crazy thing for a creative to think that they would do 10 years ago, 5 years ago, a year ago. And something that's very exciting is how this is solving real world problems, real world challenges. And I'm curious, grounded in that perspective, that our own intersectional identities are bringing to bear our own creative practices and processes intersecting with technology. How do you guys see the future of AI from that perspective, from where you guys are individually standing? Not just a general point of view, but like who you are. How do you see this playing out in the future, technology and art? No pressure.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, please.
There's a lot of futures coming. So here's a really weird one, but I'm gonna try to compare it to something that we already have today. You know how there's like, like Marvel doesn't own the rights to Spider-Man? So like they license that intellectual property from Sony, and then they can make movies and games. So I think the future of artists and AI is, I think artists are gonna license out their images, their likeness, their training models, and they're gonna do like, kind of like IP deals. So maybe like, let's say you're Josephine, you have Josephine's art style, and you're a brand that wants to work with Josephine's AI trained data. You want to use Josephine's style for training model. Josephine then has a deal with you saying, all right, here's the rights. So is it in perpetuity? Is it for 6 months? Is it for 5 years? And then the future of artists and AI, I think, is like coming up with almost like a licensing. Like the artist becomes like, okay, I might license some of this, I might not. And then in terms of the agents who get you the work, you can, that future of AI agents might be the ones that help negotiate for you. Like right now, I use ChatGPT to renegotiate contracts when I'm getting a shitty deal.
Same, bro.
So I literally and in the past, I'm not like a writer, so I get very frustrated in an email when I can't write very well. I also have chronic nerve pain in my left hand, so I can't use my arm very much. I have to use my voice when I use my computer. So for me, it was very frustrating that in order for me to do business, I had to write and I had to type with my hand. It's not very accessible. So then when I'm using GPT-4, I can copy and paste the email that's writing a bad deal for me that I got from the client, and I'm like, hey, and then I speak to my computer. I say, I'm frustrated about this, this, and this, and I think the real price for that kind of work is this. Can you rewrite this email? Can you rewrite a response to that email in a kind and professional way that addresses my concerns? And then it writes it for me. I read it, and then I bring the human version of me in and say, okay, I almost audit it. Is it too robotic in some spots? Is it too weird? And then maybe that's the right time for me to use my left hand, because now I don't have to type the whole thing. I'm just typing a few edits here and there. Send that across, and all of a sudden, it's been landing like double the pay. And I would have normally just ignored the email because it was too stressful for me to type because my hand would limit me. But now I can do that email and get paid and then relax a little bit more on the next trip. Maybe not freak out so much.
Yes.
Not taking your time.
Yes. I'm not taking a scan for a job. Yeah, this is great. Lawyers take that.
Yeah,
No, please go ahead.
and just speaking on more jobs, I think we're in the beginning of the future of AI and creativity. A few years ago during the pandemic, shortly after everything happened, we saw this kind of golden era of creativity and content creation. You had a lot of people that were laid off. They were without jobs, and they actually, the silver lining for them is they had the space and the time to create. And so you saw a lot of people just start to go on social media, show their artwork. They started pursuing their passions, and a lot of those people have turned those into businesses through content creation or otherwise. And now AI is opening that up even further. The amount of content I see from content creators on Instagram and TikTok, that AI has clearly been able to streamline how they create content, the way that they put it out into the world, how they're creating tutorials and giving back to the community and getting that back. And even on an in-house and agency side, everyone is going to, all the creatives, now that we have more space and time to actually let our ideas come to the forefront, it's gonna be an even more explosion of creativity in the world. So in-house, agency, and freelance creatives. So basically everyone's just gonna have more ability to put things out into the world, and so it's gonna be actually pretty awesome.
So excited. Oh my God, email pumped up. I agree.
Great point. We love that. Very good, Stephen.
Well, I agree as well. So, I think as well, as bringing on from what you were mentioning, I think it's incredible because it's going to help so many more smaller studios be able to plan those bigger projects through, generating contracts and also working from a smaller team. And also, an example that I'm doing right now actually is that with a lot of my clients, I'll actually be on a call with them, a Zoom call, brainstorming ideas. If they don't have a clear idea, and in Adana you can generate tons of ideas and merging them together to help clear and make a stronger idea for the client. Then you go back with mood boarding and that side of it too. So yeah.
Well, one of the things I was going to say was I know it's time. I'm being ushered. I'm gonna finish with and ask one last one. I'm sorry. Is it okay? Can I ask another question? You guys want to hear more? Yeah. That was like lukewarm.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, that was fine. That's an afternoon, yes. So one of the things that I've been noticing that's really powerful is, as I work with different clients, different kinds of businesses, different kind of industry leaders, there's so much fear in approaching some of these different AI tools because the question is like, oh, I have this thing that can do anything, so what do I do now? And there's so much fear in like how to even begin. And so a lot of the work is really just practicing prompting, like, oh, well, if I were to think about it, and just through practice, this is how I would approach the question. And it's really just starting with a question. It's like, how do you start a conversation with another human? You ask a question. Hi, how are you? Where are you from? Right? It starts with a question. It keeps building into the practice of asking questions. And for myself, I'm noticing the skills that are required is really just curiosity. It's like the central tenet of so many of the different ways. Like, what is prompt engineering? It's just curiosity. And I'm curious, again, last question, what are the skills you've developed and the skills you found most important in approaching these creative tools? This is a wild card, guys. They didn't get this before. And second, what are the most important lessons, maybe, that you've learned as you've been practicing that you would want to impart upon the audience?
Improv. Ooh. Take an improv class.
Yeah.
Also rollerblading. That was another one.
Rollerblading.
Go rollerblading.
Rollerblading to take a break from all the AI. If you're reading too much AI news and it's feeling scary, you have to go outside.
Forest Bay.
The best ideas come from going outside. Yeah.
It's true, actually. Walks are
good. The skills that you come with are the areas that you'll be the strongest in, right? I mean, if I have a background in visual effects, I look at the way that these tools are used differently. A writer, an art historian, everybody brings different strengths, and leaning into those, I think, can lead to some interesting results.
Yeah, I think it's made my creative problem-solving skills enhanced. And one of the ways that I don't know if a lot of people know with ChatGPT is definitely always ask it to ask you 3 to 5 questions to make whatever you're asking it better.
Yeah.
Because it's crazy. It's like when it asks you 3 to 5 questions, you're like, oh wow, I didn't even think to ask myself that. This is Dad. I should be questioning myself in this way. So that's just I guess that's a practical hard thing that's made me improve my skills.
That's great.
That's a really good point.
Challenging yourself is the most rewarding experience. I think the flip of curiosity is scaring yourself. So try to do something dangerous, set yourself up for failure, and see if you can wiggle your way out of it. So I don't know. Maybe that means involving other people in the thing, and then you're like, oh shit, now the stakes are higher. So the more you can scare yourself, I think that's maybe not how the ad world thinks, because people like to play it safe. But I think if you can scare yourself, you're gonna find much more interesting ideas.
Embody Houdini. Yeah, put yourself in a box and throw yourself into the ocean. I'm just kidding, don't actually, but
Literally, that's good advice.
I found
they're doing that at the Pinterest segment. It's one of the interactive experiences.
I found as well, just for general creative experimentation, it's been so fun. So on my Instagram, I do a lot of experimentation in terms of how to express yourself digitally. One video I did recently was wear AI, not fast fashion. And the idea behind it was that you're able to generate massive looks to go and experiment with. Also with your different styles, you can literally create any garments that you could imagine. It's so fun. If you guys want any advice, speak to me after. Also on the screens there's a video of one of the experimentations. So
please check out the gallery in the back. That's it. Thank you. Thank you everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.